Revenge. For us. For us. For us.
The text arrived like a thrown object. You're banned from Thanksgiving. Idiot. No explanation. No hesitation. Just a blunt sentence meant to bruise. I stared at it under the fluorescent buzz of the hospital billing office, the cursor on my computer pulsing like it was waiting for me to type something sane back. I didn't. The air felt colder, stretched thin by the kind of disrespect that doesn't come from strangers. It comes from people who believe they own pieces of you. My name is Rachel Cortez. I'm 29, and I work as a medical billing clerk at Harborview in Seattle. 8 hours a day, I untangle insurance claims, submit authorizations, decode provider notes, and quietly fix the financial messes that keep patients from getting the care they need. I'm good at finding errors, spotting inconsistencies, stitching numbers back into something that makes sense. I just never expected to use that skill on my own family. I didn't respond to the message. Instead, I kept entering codes into the billing software while my hands trembled against the keyboard. The office printer hummed behind me. Someone microwaved leftover pasta in the break room. Everything felt painfully ordinary, except for the way that text kept replaying in my head like a taunt. Then, just before lunch, an email forwarded by mistake slid into my inbox, the kind that freezes the air around you. It was from my mother, and my father, and my brother. A thread of messages not meant for me. Rachel's pathetic. She'll keep paying as long as we guilt her. She's too soft to push back. A laughing emoji. Then another. The screen didn't blur. The world did. I sat there, listening to the distant beep of hospital monitors, the shuffle of nurses' shoes, the faint scent of disinfectant drifting through the hall. And under it all, something inside me shifted, not loudly, but with the sharpness of glass settling into place. They hadn't just taken advantage of me. They had counted on my silence. When my shift ended, I walked out into the cold Seattle rain, with one thought settling calmly in my chest. If they wanted distance, they were about to learn what it really felt like. You're watching True Revenge, where every betrayal gets what it deserves. I grew up in a small split-level house just outside Tacoma, the kind of place where the walls hold more tension than sound. My parents, Marisol and Hector, loved appearances more than they ever loved quiet honesty. Our yard was always perfectly trimmed, even when the inside of our home felt like a place people survived rather than lived in. I was the middle child, the steady one, the fixer, the daughter who learned early that peace came from absorbing impact. My brother Mateo was the golden one, wrapped in effortless approval. My younger sister Lily was delicate, dramatic, and endlessly protected. Somewhere along the way, I became the glue that held the family's shape, even while they chipped at mine. I didn't mind being invisible back then. Invisible meant safe. Invisible meant useful. I got my first job at a dental clinic when I was 16, scanning files, answering phones, learning the rhythm of paperwork. It paid just enough to help cover groceries during the months my father forgot to. From there, I moved into medical billing, a field where mistakes meant real consequences. I'd stay late after shifts, fixing charts for doctors who never learned my name, with the quiet pride of someone who knew she made things function. Outside of work, my life was small but gentle. I baked on weekends, took evening walks listening to podcasts, kept a little stack of mystery novels beside my bed. I dreamed of getting my own place someday, somewhere with soft lighting, quiet mornings, maybe a cat. It wasn't a big dream, but it was mine. But my family had its own ideas about my purpose. Whenever bills piled up for them, utilities, credit cards, repairs, my phone would buzz. Just spot us until Friday. You know we're good for it. You're single, you can afford it. I couldn't. Not really. But guilt has a way of rearranging numbers to make irresponsibility look like obligation. For years, I paid. Quietly, predictably, without thanks. My mother would brag to relatives about Mateo's new job, Lily's new apartment, but when it came to me, she'd say, "Rachel? She's fine. She keeps busy." As if my life were some harmless hobby, a placeholder between emergencies. Still, a part of me believed they cared, just not in the ways I needed. I clung to that, hope like a thread. Then my mother met Angela, a friend from her workplace, who became something like a shadow advisor. A woman with sharp eyeliner, sharper opinions, and a talent for stirring the pot just to watch it boil. She whispered judgments, the way some people breathe. And slowly, my parents began parroting her tone, her skepticism, her cold assessments of my worth. The shift was quiet, gradual, nearly invisible at first, but distance has a way of magnifying patterns. And now, looking back, I can see where the cracks first widened. The subtle eye rolls, the jokes that weren't jokes, the expectation that I would fix every financial mess because Rachel's good with numbers. I used to think I didn't mind. I used to think it was normal. But the night they banned me from Thanksgiving, I finally understood what I'd been mistaking for family. The betrayal didn't arrive as an explosion. It came as a vibration, the soft buzz of my phone breaking the stillness of a Tuesday evening in my studio apartment in Seattle's Lower Queen, and I was reheating leftover soup, letting the steam fog the kitchen window, when I glanced at the notification. From Mom, "You're banned from Thanksgiving. Idiot. Don't bother showing up." No explanation. No context. Just that. I stared at the screen, waiting for the rest of the message, the predictable follow-up. "We didn't mean it," or "We're joking," or "Call us." But the silence that followed was intentional, practiced, deliberate. I didn't respond. My hands were steady, but something inside me shifted. A quiet click, like a lock sliding into place. A few seconds later, another notification lit my screen. Family group chat, muted. "Mom, Rachel won't be at Thanksgiving." "Mom again. Let's keep the peace this year." Then from Angela, "Best decision you've made. She drains you." Lily, she's always dramatic." And then Dad, "Don't start. Just let it be." They hadn't meant to include me. They simply forgot I was still in the group. I read each message slowly, the way you read an email confirming something you've known deep down but refused to name. I sat at my tiny table, the one I bought secondhand and sanded myself, and let the weight settle. Not grief, that was too soft. It was recognition, a stark, clinical acknowledgement that my family no longer saw me as a person, only a convenience. And isn't it strange how clarity arrives? Not with shouting, not with tears, but with quiet, steady acceptance. For years, I'd told myself I misunderstood their tone, that stress made them sharp, that they leaned on me because they trusted me. But reading those messages, something inside me, something old and tired, finally admitted the truth. They didn't lean on me. They leaned against me. My phone buzzed again. A voice message this time. Mom's voice, annoyed, hurried, loud enough to echo. She must have thought she hung up after her last text. But she hadn't. Mom's voice flooded my speaker, sharp as broken glass. "Honestly, Hector, she's a burden. She should be grateful we include her at all. And if she keeps pushing, we'll cut her off completely. She doesn't contribute anything. Not like Mateo and Lily. Angela's right. Rachel takes more than she gives." In the background, I heard Angela's laugh, low and satisfied. Then my father's voice. "She'll figure it out eventually. She always does." My own breath sounded unfamiliar in my ears. I replayed the voicemail once. Then again. Not for pain, but for precision. Every word sharpened the picture I'd been refusing to see. Mom's next text arrived minutes later, as if to tie the bow on their quiet rejection. Mom, and don't ask us for money this month. We're not helping you anymore. The irony almost made me smile. I hadn't asked them for money since high school. They were the ones who called me when bills ballooned, when credit cards maxed out, when mistakes needed burying. I'd covered their lapses more times than they remembered, but in their minds, the truth never mattered, only the story they preferred. It wasn't the insult that hurt, it was the ease, how naturally the cruelty flowed. That night, I didn't reply, not out of restraint, but out of understanding. Their words didn't push me away. They revealed where I already stood, at the edge, unwanted, unclaimed, and something quietly resolute began forming in that emptiness, a blueprint born from the truth they'd spoken so freely when they thought I wasn't listening. The morning after the voicemail, Seattle felt different. Same gray sky, same smell of rain on the concrete, but inside me, something had reorganized itself, like all the pieces finally slid into their correct positions. I didn't cry, I didn't pace, I didn't replay their words anymore. There was nothing left to interpret. What comes after rejection isn't heartbreak, it's analysis. I sat at my small dining table, the one my parents once mocked for being too modest, opened my laptop, and pulled up the one thing I'd spent years ignoring. My financial logs. Not mine exactly, ours, because for the past 5 years, I had been quietly covering their overdue utilities, their internet bill, their credit card minimums, extra groceries, their car insurance once a year, and occasionally cash transfers labeled just helping so Dad wouldn't feel embarrassed. They always framed it as temporary. A rough month, a late payment, a favor, but patterns don't lie, they accumulate. I filtered through my payment history. The spreadsheet glowed in the dim light of my apartment, a forensic map of every time I chose their comfort over my stability. A list too long for someone they claimed took more than she gave. The numbers didn't upset me. They grounded me. Each transaction clarified a truth I should have seen years ago. My family loved the version of me that made their lives easier, not the version that needed anything in return. My stomach tightened as I scrolled further. Rent assistance for Angela, textbook money for Lily's children, a temporary loan for Dad's dental work that was never mentioned again. I didn't resent giving, but I resented that they had rewritten the story to erase every sacrifice I made. As I sifted through the data, a steady rhythm formed, like assembling evidence not for revenge, but for understanding. I wasn't trying to prove anything to them. I was proving it to myself. Around noon, I called the only person who had ever spoken to me, without varnish or agenda, Mr. Jameson, my old landlord turned accidental mentor. He'd watched me crawl out of my 20s with 2 jobs, a tiny apartment, and a spine that kept learning to straighten itself. His voice crackled through the phone. "Rachel, what's wrong?" It's time I stopped carrying people who drop me," I said. There was a pause, respectful, not pitying. "Then let's talk about what's in your name." In an hour, he arrived with folders, real folders, paper clips, tabs. He spread everything across my coffee table like a quiet intervention. "You've been covering 7 active bills for them." He tapped each paper slowly, carefully. Internet, water, electric, 2 credit card minimums, their streaming bundle, and a past due medical balance you paid last winter. My breath stilled. I had known, but seeing it laid out like this, structured, undeniable, stripped away the last of my excuses. "They rely on you," he said gently, "but reliance isn't the same as respect." I nodded. My voice felt foreign when I spoke. "They don't want me at Thanksgiving." He inhaled through his teeth, not surprised, just disappointed for me. And yet you're still holding the scaffolding of their lives, he replied. The rain started outside, a slow percussion against the window. What do you want to do, Rachel? He asked. I looked at the printed statements. The voicemail still saved in my phone, the group chat messages that called me dramatic, a drain, unnecessary. And then my answer arrived, steady and unshakable. I want my life back. A new stillness filled the room, not passive, not defeated. A stillness that comes before a shift. Then, he said, leaning back, we make a plan. The plan didn't begin with anger. It began with a spreadsheet. Mr. Jameson helped me organize everything. Every bill in my name, every auto payment, every quiet patch job I'd been doing for years without acknowledgement. The list looked surgical when we finished. Clean, ordered, undeniable. None of these belong to you, he said. Not legally, not ethically. I knew that, but hearing it aloud felt like removing the last excuse I'd been clinging to. We sat side by side on my faded gray couch, the rain still whispering against the glass. What's the first step? I asked. He didn't hesitate. You stop subsidizing people who pretend you don't exist. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't cruel. It was administrative. We logged into each account together. Electric, remove payment method. Water, cancel autopay. Internet, remove authorized user. Credit cards, unlink account. Medical balance, mark paid by you only. Streaming services, canceled completely. With every click, something inside me loosened. Not relief, not yet. It was more like reclaiming territory. I didn't realize I'd surrendered. Will they call you? He asked. Oh, absolutely. And what will you say? I looked at the dimming screen, my reflection barely visible. Nothing, I said softly. Not avoidance. Not pettiness. Just nothing. Silence is not a weapon. It's a boundary. One they had never allowed me to have. By the time we finished, the rain had stopped. The apartment felt different, lighter, like removing invisible weights I had mistaken for responsibilities. Mr. Jameson gathered the papers into a neat stack. You did the right thing, he said. I breathed out slowly. It's strange, I whispered. This isn't revenge. It's correction. A quiet correction they taught me to make the night they called me a burden. The fallout began faster than I expected. It was the morning before Thanksgiving when my phone lit up with the first alert, 8 missed calls from Mom, then 3 from Dad, then 1 from Lily. I didn't answer. I was making coffee, grounding beans in the quiet of my Seattle apartment while their world, the one built on my quiet contributions, began to tilt. At 10:14 a.m., the first voicemail arrived. Rachel, the internet is down. Did you forget to just call me back? 10 minutes later. Rachel, the electric bill is past due. They're saying it's been unpaid for 2 months. What's going on? Then Dad's voice, irritated, not concerned. Fix it. Whatever you did, fix it now. I stirred sugar into my coffee and watched the steam rise. There was nothing to fix. By noon, the messages were less composed. Mom again. Why are the credit cards frozen? We're trying to book the rental car for the drive tomorrow. Lily. Mom is panicking. Just call them and sort it out. Then Angela, sharp, dramatic. Are you seriously doing this to your own family? I let every notification pass. Silence, after all, was the only language they never learned to manipulate. But the real collapse came after sunset. A final voicemail from Mom, her voice trembling in a way I had never heard. Rachel, they're saying the utilities for the whole house might be shut off by tomorrow. We don't understand. Please, whatever we did, whatever you think we did, just talk to us. We need you. There it was. Not accountability. Need. Not recognition. Dependency finally exposed. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty. I felt accurate. Their comfort had always rested on my silence. Once the silence changed direction, the entire structure leaned. They wanted me banned, erased, dismissed, but they still expected the benefits of my existence. I didn't have to teach them a lesson. Their own behavior was already doing the work. At 7:42 p.m., Dad sent the last message. "We're coming by. Open the door." I didn't. I turned off my porch light and let the sound of the elevator echo down the hallway without me. They lingered outside for 10 minutes, maybe 20. I didn't check the peephole. I didn't need to see their faces to understand the shift. They weren't angry anymore. They were afraid of a life where I stopped absorbing their consequences. When their footsteps finally retreated, the quiet felt clean. Not triumphant, not vindictive, just right-sized. Their world had been built on my presence. The moment I stepped out of it, the imbalance corrected itself. Thanksgiving morning arrived, quietly. No buzzing phone. No guilt-soaked invitations. No pretending I wasn't an outsider in my own family. For the first time in years, the day belonged entirely to me. I walked to Cary Park just after sunrise, the sky soft, Seattle's skyline still stretching awake. The cold air had that clean metallic edge that November always brings. I wrapped my coat tighter and let the stillness settle into my bones. I wasn't celebrating anything. I wasn't mourning anything either. I was acknowledging myself, my choices, my life, finally uncluttered by the constant need to be useful in order to be tolerated. They had spent years treating me like a backup generator, invisible until everything else failed. Their rejection didn't free me. My response did. Later that afternoon, I received one final text from Dad. "We didn't mean what we said. Just come home." Home. Funny how that word can shrink and expand depending on who uses it. I stared at the message for a long moment, then locked my phone without replying. Not out of anger, not out of pride, just clarity. Their voices no longer dictated the rhythm of my life. Their approval no longer decided whether I felt whole. Their disappointment no longer required repair. Losing them wasn't a rupture. It was a rebalancing. I walked back toward my apartment as the city lights flickered on, each window glowing like a small, quiet promise. For the first time, my future didn't feel like something I had to earn from people who never invested in me. It felt open, unclaimed, mine. Some endings don't roar. They exhale. And in that soft release, I finally understood. Distance wasn't punishment. It was protection. This was true revenge, where pain becomes purpose.